Hello and welcome to the AdTech Heroes podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Reddit's key to context, and I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Underwood, Global Head of Agency Development at Reddit. Hi, Alex. How's it going?
Good. Good to see you, Dal. After all these years, it's good to see a familiar face on the podcast, or listen to a familiar face.
There's a good few of us Spotify alumni, right, dotted around the world or in our industry. So it's always good to catch up.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people in the industry who've trod the boards at Spotify for sure.
But yeah, thanks for jumping on the podcast episode today. Really excited to talk to you about all things Reddit. It'd be great to first kickstart really to understand about your career and what has led you to where you are today.
Yes, well, gosh, that's going to date me a little, but I'll try and give you an abridged version of her career to date. I think I started back in '99 at a media agency in London, which was then new PhD in TV buying, if you would believe it. And after a few roles in planning, I went to the Radio Advertising Bureau, the RAB, to oversee marketing to the media agency community. And that was a stepping stone for me really into the agency development discipline, which has really shaped my career since. And I think it was really the genesis of that function at Google UK. And I used that as a starting point in the agency team. And then that led me actually to move to New York 15 years ago, if you can believe that. Clearly done nothing to my accent, but it's been a great experience.
Your accent's still
nonetheless.
Strong as ever.
You can't change that. I've wrestled with, do I want to keep the Birmingham accent or the American? It's a hard choice. But I've kept the Birmingham British accent, thankfully, I think. And yes, so I joined the US Google agency team and spent a few years there. And interestingly, one of the roles I did there was sort of looking after media agency strategy for North America, which was a great experience in terms of working with product and engineering on the products, that fit the agency ecosystem. And then, as you know, I was really fortunate to join Spotify as they were launching their US operation, and I sort of built out and grew the global agency development team, and later the global agency and client partnership team, and got to work with many great people, including, yourself there as well. And that kind of brings me up to date. I've been at Reddit for the last 18 months, as you said, in the role of head of global agency development.
Amazing. And how have you found that shift amongst the different companies, whether it was UK based or US based? Did you find any similarities or big differences when you kind of went job to job?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences or opportunities I think I found when I made the transition from the UK marketplace to the US marketplace is just the sheer size and scale of the US. I think, the UK is a much more condensed marketplace. And I did find actually that there was a lot more onus on the importance of comms planning or strategic planning in the media agency discipline within the UK, perhaps more so than the US, which I think is just more focused on scale and buying at scale. So, that was something I tried to bring over with my background at PhD, but also Google US to the US team as well. So that was one of the biggest differences. And then I think as I've transitioned through the companies, I've noticed about myself and I think you asked this question earlier, what drew me to Reddit. And I think, I've always been motivated, and it sounds quite cliched, but by companies that play a somewhat meaningful role in people's lives or within the industry. You think about the utility of search in people's lives, the emotional power of music, and now you have the power of belonging and empowerment that community can bring anyone and everyone in the world. And I think when you start with that fundamental value basis or foundation importance in people's lives, that breeds, I've found, trust and loyalty and advocacy, which I think makes it a very good ground for brands to thrive in. And I've been really passionate about helping obviously agencies in particular navigate those spaces and unlock those opportunities. And that's really been fundamentally what my role's been about through Google, Spotify, and now Reddit as well.
And for those of our listeners who have never used Reddit, haven't heard of it, in a nutshell, how would you describe Reddit as a platform?
Yeah. I'd say probably Reddit as a platform can be described as a community of communities. I think, there's over 100,000 communities on Reddit, and they're all built around your shared interests and passions rather than your social graph. And I'd say, Reddit really is the antithesis of follower-driven platforms. It's not about who you are or your curated or manicured version of yourself. It's about what you contribute, your ideas, your opinions, your recommendations, your answers. And, that contribution is everything on Reddit. And so users will then submit, vote, and comment on those contributions around the topics that they fundamentally care about the most. And I think because these communities are built around passions, you get a lot of very knowledgeable people in these communities. You get subject matter experts, you get peers, even brands. And it becomes very hard to fool or misinform people in these communities because there's a function called the downvote, and people can just downvote your contribution if they feel they're being misinformed. And that means that contribution will fall down your feed and gets less eyeballs and less visibility. And the last thing I'd say on probably what Reddit is, kind of in a nutshell, is there's a community for every topic or interest or hobby really imaginable. You can go from as broad as r/technology to r/superb owls, which is awesome owls. And I think with over 70 million daily actives now, Reddit is become the sort of the home to the most open and authentic conversations that are happening online today.
Amazing. And your role at Reddit, describe that. Is there any day the same for you, or what's a typical day for you, Alex, in the world of Reddit?
I'd say there's no one day that is ever the same, which is great. I'd say the role fundamentally, if I was to summarize it, is, we're looking to build Reddit's agency business through strategic partnerships and strategic programs, that fundamentally drive outcomes for our partners. My vision for the team is to be a top tier global partner to agencies. While that might not be immediately accessible through scale, say, for example, what we can focus on is in creating best-in-class partnerships and programs that connect to Reddit's value proposition, but also delivers on the business goals and corporate needs of our agency partners. And I guess another thing that I've learned from doing the role for a while now is another core constituent in this role is our internal local sales teams and local sales partners. Fundamentally, a global agency team should be an extension of the overall sales team. And, if they're successful, we're successful, and vice versa. And either way, if either of us are successful, Reddit is successful. And that's the most important thing to this role and to me in this role as well.
And why do you think Reddit is compelling for advertisers? Is it, like you mentioned, that community feel, that community aspect of it? Is that what's really bringing and attracting advertisers to the platform?
Yeah, it's evolving fast, actually. Reddit's been around for a while, and it's only really recently that really started to reframe the value proposition of Reddit. I think one thing I would say, it's about the passions of people, and instead of PII, for example. As I said, the people are united by shared interests and passions rather than their demographic information, which I think is only going to become more compelling as, we move into this world of no cookies. But I'd say probably to go a little bit deeper than that, I'd say what I've learned in the 18 months I've been there is that people that make up the Reddit communities are highly intentional. They're there for a very specific reason. They want to be entertained. They want to learn. They want to find answers. They want to get recommendations, hear opinions. And I think this intentionality allows for really unique content and context. And, these conversations that are happening are evergreen. They're happening in real time. There's real depth to them. And if you want to find context, you're finding context being framed or reframed in real time in these communities, in contrast to, say, a hashtag or a cultural moment in time, for example. I think, I'll give you an example. If you say, take generative AI, for example. I know it's still acknowledged it's still a hot button topic today, but for where it was last summer, it seemed to be effervescent or evergreen in every channel of communication or information source. That's not necessarily the case today, but if you go into certain communities on Reddit, those conversations are happening by the minute, by the day, by the hour, in terms of getting opinions and recommendations on policies and regulations and ideas. So I think for an advertiser, therefore, you've got all these interest-based communities that are full of passions, intent, community, conversations, context, and it becomes very easy to match those, the different territories of your brand, and then harness what is a hyper-engaged audience on Reddit who is primed to learn about your brand and your message in relevant and contextual ways. And we, fundamentally, we're building solutions like interest-based and context-based targeting solutions that enable you to test and reap the benefits of the platform versus, say, the traditional demographic targeting, which, we feel is a very one-dimensional strategy. Fundamentally, we are more than our PII, aren't we? People aren't one-dimensional. If you think about, someone could be an Aston Villa football or soccer fan, a political junkie, a tapas culinary aficionado, a Game of Thrones fan. By the way, I'm not talking about myself here. Only one part.
I was going to say, is that all your top things?
Yeah. Answers on a postcard. Which part of that persona is me. It's very easy. But I say for an advertiser, you can see the depth and breadth of interest of your audience on Reddit, and because it's a text-based conversation, it allows people to go deep and also transcend specific topics. You could start a conversation in r/soccer about a certain type of football boot, soccer boot, or cleat that you want to buy, and that might lead to the right shin guards or shin pad that you might want to buy, followed by a recommendation on where to buy those in a certain store in a certain town, which could lead to, where could I get good pizza in that town? So you're almost building this. What really interests me is almost building this sort of, through the context of community conversation, you're building almost like a live digital version of the traditional consumer portrait, and one that's been constantly refreshed. And I think, that to advertisers is compelling in terms of a rich source of insight on how to engage and understand these audiences as well.
And how have the users across Reddit taken to having seen advertising within the platform? So, like you said, they're going in, it's a community feel. Are they ever kind of distracted by these ads that are now appearing across the platform?
Yes, it's a great question. And I think it leans into, how brands and agencies should think about advertising or getting started on Reddit. Because I go back to intentionality and what I talked about in terms of your what counts on Reddit is your contributions and not about what you are. And I think the same is true of brands. And, we've done some research, which is part of it we're going to release next week at CES around recommendations. And I think in that research, it said, 79% of our audience is open to hearing recommendations from brands, but it's how you show up in these communities that's important. You really want to think about the tone of the community, and I think you want to think about the intentionality of the audience in that community. Because if you're say you're going there for primarily entertainment value, which people do, the more passive people on Reddit will go and they'll upvote, they share, they engage. And so you want to think about what entertainment value can you bring? Maybe it's a creative with a clear call to action, or it's a funny joke that taps into the intention of the audience. Whereas on the other side, you do get these much more, and a lot of our audience actually are much more active members of the community that are characterized by posting, commenting, and in some cases moderating the communities. And here you've got to, as a brand, you've got to be really intentional and think about what's the practical value that we can bring to those conversations that are taking place. Contextual relevance and importance is key here. And I'd say it's a recommendation I always make to brands and agencies we talk to. If you want to show up, really, don't ever underestimate the power or the importance of brand insights, product insights, or updates that you have, recommendations that you have, because the people in those communities, they're passionate about the topic, or they wouldn't be in that community already. And so they value that interaction and that utility and those recommendations because they're enriching that passion that they already have for the topic as well. So I think it's just been very intentional about how you show up. And I think, trying to think of this is somewhat a niche example of this, but I saw it. It's coming front. It's front of mind because I saw it yesterday. But there's I'm not saying necessarily I'm a cat lover, but there's a company in the UK. I think it's called Blink Cat Food, and they're targeting like cat health, and it's like r/what is wrong with your cat, because cat owners are actively seeking the top products for their pets. They're passionate about it. They have pets. So there's definitely a space for those types of advertisers to show up in their communities and add practical and an intrinsic value as well. So if you show up in that way, to answer your question, I think there's real value and deep engagement you can drive with audiences as long as you show up in the right way.
I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's showing up in the right way. There's probably so many niche audiences or communities that you probably have access to, which simply wouldn't be available on other platforms, right? So, if you want to target cat lovers, it's very niche, and we've been in the industry long enough to know we've had all those types of briefs, right, from agencies where they're super targeted. Whether it's cat lovers in Birmingham, or I remember once it was in a marina, yacht owners in a specific region, and you think, how am I going to literally zone in on that? And it's a bit of education, isn't it? You have to speak to the agency, educate the agency as well as the client in some cases. So do you think it's a bit of that? It's a bit of back and forth with the agency to really understand what they want to achieve and then addressing it with the right community?
Yeah. And we're sometimes in those conversations that we're having, it's because sometimes they are niche communities, but if by diving into those communities yourselves, or we can do it for them, you can actually see what is being said in those communities, how people feel, what they value, what the challenges are. And you can pull out some pretty, instead of just beyond targeting, you can pull out some pretty rich insights, which can then inform how you want to engage or, message with that particular audience as well. So I've always said that's, talk about education, that's always a starting point, to educate them about sometimes educate about the category, with the context in real time as well. I think it's important.
And is there a specific technology Reddit is using for that? I'm guessing it's not very manual, scanning through millions and millions of communities. So is there technology that drives everything with what you guys do?
Yeah, I can't say too much on that now, but yes, that's certainly it's a key part of what we're building, and in terms of being able to more seamlessly access insights and give access into insights for our agency partners. That's kind of that's something we're actively working on and building, and it's kind of a foundation to some of the partnerships that we're building in the marketplace as well, which is why I can't say too much more on that at the moment. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's fundamentally a focus moving forward.
Makes sense. So your role's global, right? And the question I had was, what are the biggest challenges that the agencies are facing? But does that differ market to market? Are you speaking to different markets, or is everything predominantly kind of in the US and then it kind of fans out to other regions across the world?
Yeah, I think there are some challenges which are evergreen to all markets, but I think specifically in terms of how we go to market, we're at different stages of evolution with different markets at Reddit. Obviously, most mature markets are, the US, North America, and, we are increasingly building out, building out a presence, obviously in Europe and EMEA and Australia and Canada. The UK is really our second hub of activity, and where we're really building out a team there in particular. So, there are differences in terms of how we go to market, in terms of the level of education that we need to take to those markets. In terms of, part of it's just consideration and understanding and reframing what the value proposition to some of our more earlier stage and nascent markets, and then some of the more developed markets like the US, it's more about, all right, now we have an understanding of what the value proposition is. How do we drive deeper comprehension and we truly unlock the power of contextual conversation in terms of insights and activation for your brands, and taking it to the next level? And I guess that's where we're at within North America, and perhaps still in the sort of latter stages of consideration and building out the value proposition in other markets. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of go to market. I think more evergreen challenges, I think, I'm hearing from agencies, I think just, it's not, everything's so volatile at the moment, seemingly. And I don't just point to the economy here. I think it's just the world that we live in. I think it's becoming harder for, I guess, all businesses, but certainly focusing on agencies now, it becomes harder to really manage and forecast your business in a traditionally linear fiscal or calendar year way. There's just a lot of uncertainty that clouds, a longer term view on planning. I think for agencies, I think that's definitely a challenge that, I've been privy to in conversations with agencies. And then, there's a whole realm of insular industry challenges. I think one that's obviously close to our businesses is obviously the deprecation of the cookie. I believe that the 1% of the cookies been deprecated, I believe, by Google in this quarter. So I think it's a challenge and an opportunity for agencies. I think the challenge is to ensure that they're educating their clients, but also they're building a plan for the future. Are they testing alternative targeting methods, opportunities? What percentage of their what percentage of their plan is cookie dense? All those things that need to be an area of focus, but it gives them agencies a real opportunity to take a leadership position in this place with their clients. I think similarly, there's other leadership opportunities for agencies that I've noticed. I've only had a surface level look at the recent A&A report on programmatic advertising. I think I would assume that's another opportunity for agencies to really take a leadership position in really refocusing how they think about programmatic. I think it was 25% of programmatic advertising was going to MFAs and fraudulent and bad actors as well. So I think, the fundamental value and role of agencies is to ensure that you're planning and buying media most efficiently and effectively. So I think it's a real challenge, but a real opportunity to take a leadership position with their clients this year on that topic, as well as a myriad or a host of other issues that we're all grappling with.
Definitely. And have you seen certain advertisers or verticals that have adopted contextual a little bit more, or have invested more time and resource into, ultimately not working with cookies? Have you seen that? Is that the case?
Yeah, I'd say we're starting to see the genesis of that. I don't know whether we can directly attribute to that impending shift, because, we're laser focused on really building out our leadership credentials in context and interest-based advertising. And so as part of that journey, we are introducing, new products, new tools that help advertisers better benefit from, the context, the rich interest that they can find in the communities. I think we just launched our keyword targeting tool towards the end of last year. So, we're starting to see real impact from that. We got like a 30% improvement in engagement rates already from that. And that, that's fundamentally at the genesis of that journey, where, it's really allowing the formats on Reddit to be targeted with the precision of search keywords, but expanding that into text-rich conversation, and it's all built on the fundamentals of search. So we're definitely seeing some impact and some benefit from that. I don't know where I can pull that out from our strategy versus the shifts that are happening in the marketplace. It'd be a bit early for me to say it at this point.
Okay, no problem. And in terms of like events, how are Reddit positioning themselves? So obviously we've got CES coming up. Will you guys have a presence there?
Yes, we will. Are you going, or does CTAG have a
Yeah,
presence?
well,
as well?
there's a few of us at CTAG that will be attending. And yeah, it'll be my first one. But I think in terms of the industry, right, it's an exciting one to attend. Are you guys doing anything in particular? Is it mainly for meetings? Is it what kind of presence do you think
Yeah.
you'll be having there?
Yeah, absolutely an important space for us to play in. We've got a presence at the Cosmopolitan. Remember, I think it's Condisa 5 and 6. So please come by. We've got an activation. It's called the Key to Context, and it's fundamentally I hate this word, but an immersive experience, we say, in which we bring trying to bring the conversation that are happening on Reddit every day to life. And it's going to highlight that combined power of search and community to create contextually relevant opportunities for brands. And I guess another key part to this activation is we'll be launching our next wave of research as part of our Reddit Recommends program, which we actually launched at Cannes, another tentpole last year. And it's fundamentally built on the foundational insight that we found. Every second on average, 2 people ask for a recommendation on Reddit and get on average 19 responses. So, this next stage of research, really trying to better understand that recommendation economy and the different recommendation journeys that exist within it. So this new research will explore that, and also try and better understand the role of building trust in the purchase journey. And we've broken it out a little bit more this time across some key product categories like consumer tech, beauty, and automotive. And there's actually some quite interesting and nuanced results by category. It's also really get into the anatomy of recommendations on Reddit as well. So that's kind of what our activation's about. And feel free to come by.
Definitely. So that's for all the listeners to our episode. Check out the booth over at Cosmopolitan. So you mentioned just briefly now on 2024. Is there anything that excites you in particular, or about 2024, or what will be your kind of key focus areas as we head into the new year?
Something that's exciting me as we go into the new year, okay, is our focus on context and interest-based advertising, but it's also just keeping an eye on this. What we're seeing in terms of this, there is a sort of a shift in consumer behavior that we're seeing on Reddit or in and around Reddit, which is been driven by the rise of SEO and different AI models. It means that I think it's finding real human perspective or answers is becoming harder and harder. And I think trust in AI results and queries people are getting from traditional search models are being questioned more and more. We're seeing this play out on Reddit because we're seeing more and more people are now adding Reddit to their Google searches or appending their Google searches with Reddit to get, I guess, more relevant, reliable, and human answers to their queries. I think Google data share this happened over 32 billion times in the past year. So this definitely a growing trend. And I think Reddit's community context allows people to search for be more specific and more precise and nuanced in their search. And that, that's what's exciting again to next year is that's what Reddit is. It's real people who are looking for real answers or recommendations from real subject matter experts, peers and brands in communities they trust around topics they're passionate about. So, I'm excited about that because I think there's a lot we can do with our agency partners to help them understand what real people are thinking. What's growing, evolving, or trending in terms of cultural relevance, understanding passion points of audiences. What are the category drivers? What are the recommendations within those categories? So I think all of this gives us a really strong inside basis on which to build deeper relationships and partnerships with agencies. And then from that, I guess, excitingly, how do we tap into that trust that exists there within those communities to really connect with those audience in a more meaningful and contextual way? So those are just have to pull out a couple of things that I'm super excited about as it relates to Reddit specifically. That's probably what it would be.
Yeah, it's a lot of exciting things to come for Reddit in the new year, and it's a lot of exciting areas that brands and agencies can work with you on. So no, it's a lot there. We always finish our podcast episode with this question, so I'd love to get your take on it. If you had a superpower in AdTech, what would it be?
I should call myself the super villain or so, I don't know, or pipe dream maybe. I guess it's less of I guess my answer would be less technical and more operational, I think. And one thing I think that could transform everything and transform or boost the industry or AdTech is if there was and there was a lot of great industry bodies out there, regulators out there, but if there's just like one master body or regulator that all agencies and brands, publishers and platforms all bought into, and set standards for privacy, AI usage, scams and fraudulent advertising, protection of children, so on, and that everyone, and they set solutions and approved standards and methodologies, I believe that would ease the complexity that, does exist in our industry and really allow most important and valuable thing in our industry, the talent and the people in the industry to do great work and to flourish. So I'd say, I don't know if that is a great or a boring answer to your question, but I'd say that's my super villain or pipe dream versus superpower.
So a unified approach. Yeah. Isn't that Google?
No comment.
Well, exactly. Brilliant. No, thanks, Alex, for your time. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you for a great episode. We'll speak soon.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, and thanks for your time.